Hi, guys. So let's talk about curriculum. I'm not going to talk about all of the details of curriculum or give recommendation. What I'm talking about is curriculum in the sense of like philosophy and pedagogy. So this is the informing reason why you have your program looking like it does. It's what informs your schedule. It's what informs your book choices. It's what informs whether you're using online components or not. It's what is going to probably draw families to your hybrid school. And this is something that you really want to think through. Now, for a lot of you, you might be starting here and you say, well, the whole point of me starting this program is because I have this particular type of pedagogy, philosophy, educational model that I want to be able to deliver. And I'm going to try to deliver it through a hybrid program. This is excellent because a hybrid program, I think, can be a really great, accessible way to make a particular type of education available to a lot of kids who would not be able to get it otherwise. Okay. And it doesn't necessarily require 100% knowledge on the part of the parent to implement it perfectly at home. So that is something that I think is a huge pro, a huge positive about the hybrid model. It also applies to microschooling because you can apply a particular, philosophy of education in a microschool the same way to a group of kids. The advantage of a hybrid school is you can usually reach more kids, dozens, hundreds of kids with this philosophy of education, and it's often more affordable to the parents. So I said that the parents don't have to be able to deliver it with perfect knowledge of it at home. This is true in the sense that it's better probably for the child to fully experience the method of education if their parent knows what it is and believes in it and is trying to implement it at home the best they can as far as getting the full experience, whether it's Montessori or Waldorf or Charlotte Mason or classical or whatever. Okay. However, what I have found in my experience is that even if parents don't really quite understand 100% what it is, or they're not really sure how they're supposed to implement it at home with everything. Like they might want to use workbooks at home, but you only use living books and narrations at school. That's one I'm familiar with. Okay. The child is still going to get a lot of really quality Charlotte Mason style education and living books in the hybrid school days that they probably wouldn't be getting otherwise. And then they can do their workbooks at home if that's what their parent chooses to do, maybe for grammar or for reading or whatever. And that's fine because what's the alternative, right? Now, if you're like really a purist about it and you really want all of your parents to follow exactly what you're doing at school, that's something that you have to communicate clearly with the parents. You probably have to do parent trainings. Those are always good. It helps support the parents, helps them understand, feel more confident with what they're doing at home and all of that. So I definitely would recommend that in any case. But there is something satisfying about being able to deliver the model that you believe in to the kids, even if the parents are using maybe a more simplified or something that just works better for their home or their family at home. And for instance, with the Charlotte Mason education, there's a lot of time outside. There's a lot of living books and read alouds. There's a lot of written narrations. So the advantage of having a classroom with a teacher sitting there and they don't have to do laundry. They don't have toddlers running around the room like a homeschool parent usually does, right? So they can focus on delivering a Charlotte Mason education to those kids in their classroom. And Charlotte Mason herself was a huge proponent of schools. She taught in schools. She was a teacher. She wasn't even a parent. And a lot of her books, the context is not a mom home with multiple kids. So that's fine. And for the mom with a baby and a toddler and, a part-time job and things everywhere and the dog and all of that stuff, maybe they can't sit and read aloud to the child for hours a day and take them to the park for hours a day. They can't do it. And I may have been there at some point in my life. So they're so happy to be able to have a school deliver that to their child, and then they just do what they can at home. Okay. So, and that is true for, multiple types of education, the pedagogies that can be delivered through the hybrid model. Okay. So all that to say, some of the pedagogies that are often popular are classical, which is usually rooted, well, I shouldn't say it's rooted in Latin, but it's rooted in like Western civilization. And they very often teach Latin as part of it. There's controversy about how important that is and stuff, but it's usually a defining part of it. And classic books, and often a lot of memorization, because there's the 3 stages of instruction that the classical approach goes through. That is one very common one. Charlotte Mason talked about like a Waldorf or Montessori, or a nature-based type of schooling is also popular. And again, those will focus usually on a little more delayed like academics, in the sense that the kids may not be like fluently reading by the end of kindergarten or first grade even, but that's intentional because the kids are outside playing instead, because you're only 5 and 6 months. And so that education, part of it is it's just gentler and it's more slowed down. And so that kind of instruction will start around 7 or so instead of, 5. In those types. And there's a lot more emphasis on hands-on experience and, getting outdoors and movement and play and the physical body and the spirit. All of those things are very much part of Waldorf and Montessori and Charlotte Mason's, although they all have different informing philosophies behind them, which I will not get into right now. But those are common components of those things. So there's also, you can just do traditional type of hybrid schooling, as in like, workbook based, either what the local public school is doing, or, there's other homeschool or Christian school type private school publishers that produce just kind of traditional curricula from big textbook manufacturers. Those can also be used in the hybrid model. Okay. So, however, I would really recommend that as a founder, and I say this in my strategic planning course, I say this in my founder series, you if you're like me, you're like researching stuff and you're investigating all these different things, like what do I need to do, and your brain's in a million places. But once you've like gathered your information, you kind of sort of understand what it is you like need to get together to start a program, that you kind of set it all aside for a little while and sit back down and just think about your missional heart behind why you want to do this. Okay. And you should have a missional heart behind why you want to do this, because that's what's going to like drive and keep you going, because that's what you're actually delivering to the children. Like that is why you are doing what you're doing. So you want to take the time, and maybe you don't really know what it is, and that's fine, but you don't like what's going on over here. I say, the kids aren't thriving in what I've seen over here or whatever. And you're watching that and you're like, I know I don't want to do that. I need something different. I'm looking for it. We'll go look up some of the things I just talked about, because there's a full world out there to explore if you haven't done that yet. Or you might already know exactly what it is you want to deliver, and that's great. That's where you're going to start. Okay, so just check out some of those. And like I said, you want to start with that mission. It's going to inform your teacher training. Is going to inform the schedule, how long your classes are, how much recess time there is. It may very well inform whether or not you're requiring the parents to do certain things at home, or not, what your recommendations are for home. And it's just going to inform the actual on the ground in the classroom delivery of your education, just like it would in any school. So make sure that you're really clear on that and investigate what it is and what will work best practically for you and how that lines up with what your heart is for what you're delivering. Okay? So hopefully that helps you think through some of those options.